Hi, I'm Catherine Arnott, and this is the last in a series of videos that I'm making for Abbotsford House on caregiving. At the end of the previous video, I promised I would talk about the role of music in caregiving, so I will do that now. Uh, I want to talk about it not just because I personally love music and I could sing about a million songs at the drop of a hat and know all the lyrics. And it's not because I play the ukulele, although I do, and enjoy it very much. It's because music has a special role in our lives and in the lives of people with dementia and Alzheimer's. If you think about yourself and you hear a favorite song, maybe it's from the 60s or the 70s, and you instantly know the words, and it reminds you of where you were when you first heard the song and who you were with. Maybe you were with your best girlfriend, or maybe you were on a date, or maybe you were at a dance even, and that music brings back those memories to you and provides a kind of warm feeling in your heart. Well, the interesting thing that research has found is that music does, to a degree, the same thing for people with dementia and Alzheimer's, even if they've largely lost most of their short and long term memory. Music is stored in a different part of the brain, a part of the brain that is relatively unaffected and undamaged by Alzheimer's disease. And so when people hear music that has been important to them, it can often trigger memories. They can sometimes remember the lyrics. They might start humming along. Perhaps you know about this and you may even have used it in your own caregiving. I first heard about it when I saw the movie Alive Inside several years ago. I think it came out in 2014. And I was really fascinated by the power of music for these people in the film. You can see parts of it on YouTube if you're interested. But what I'd like to suggest today is that you bring some more music into your life and into the life of the person that you're caring for. I know even for me, and even during the pandemic, I haven't been listening to as much music as usual, and it doesn't make sense because I know music makes me happy. But we get busy with tasks and this and that. We listen to the news, if you're me, and we don't listen to as much music as we might to make us feel better. The movie Alive Inside talks about is making, in that case, tapes, music tapes of a person's favorite songs, and then giving them, and it's an old movie, a Walkman so that they can listen to their favorite songs. And it's quite amazing in the film, the transformation that occurs. What I'm thinking is that you could have a son or a daughter, if you have them, make a playlist for you on an iPod or on an iPhone of the favorite songs of the person that you're caring for. You likely know most of the music that is important to them. And if you've been married for a long time, or even if they're your parents, you probably remember the music that they loved to dance to, or they sang, or they listened to in the evening. Have a playlist made of those songs, and then whether you play them on your stereo or you use headphones and your person can listen to them, this can really provide some stimulation and some emotional relief for them. They feel it in a different way than the other sounds in their lives. So I would suggest that you give it a try. Maybe you know how to make a playlist. I don't happen to. But the other thing that I would suggest is if you have a streaming service, you can try this. Like if you have Spotify or Apple Music or Amazon Music, You can search for a particular musician. For me, it might be John Prine or Patsy Cline. For you, I'm not sure what it is, but you plug that name in, or you plug country music in if that's what they like, or rhythm and blues or jazz, and it will play music for you from that person or from that genre. So you can start there and see if it's having any impact, but it's worth a try. And for you, it can also really be an emotional lift, listening to the music that really makes you happy. So it's part of what I would call the joy that we're looking to find in our lives, because that's so often missing in our caregiving lives. The final area that I want to talk about is what I call planning, the search for control, and the power of letting go. And in some ways, this underlies a lot of the message that I've been giving you, both here and in the meditations that I've recorded for you. I used to be known as Planner Girl. It was a label I proudly wore because I was so good at planning. To some degree, that was because I'm a worrier, but also I like to call it being an anticipator. It made me a very good department chair at the university because I could always anticipate 12 different scenarios of what might happen if we did such and such a change to our curriculum or whatever. And I could plan for all of those outcomes. That got challenged quite profoundly when my sister got sick. I realized relatively quickly that we weren't going to be able to plan very much of anything that happened in those final months of her life. I didn't realize it right away, though, because doctors were telling us we need this test, then we need this surgery, then we'll do this. And it wasn't until 3 months into the final 6 months of her life that it became clear that actually she was going to die. And even then, they said, well, she might live till Christmas. And I found that very shocking that it was only going to be until Christmas. But in fact, she died at the beginning of July. What that taught me was a cruel lesson for Planner Girl. And the lesson was that I couldn't control outcomes in the way that I was used to. I could plan all I wanted to, and those things might never happen, or they might happen in a completely different order, or the plans that I made and spent so much time writing and rewriting and my lists would be irrelevant even the next day. Even when I arrived the next day to see her, I would find that her condition had changed, or that the doctor had called and we had a new plan from them. And I had to let it go. And I still, of course, tried to make a plan. It was the way that I tried to keep control over life events. I don't blame me in the least. And I think we do need to plan. No matter what the status of the person that we're caring for, we do have to make some plans. We can't just sit around, as they say, eating bonbons. We have to have some plans. Maybe we have to order medication, we have to plan doctor's visits. If we're able to have caregivers come in, we have to plan for that. We have to plan meals, and so we have to get groceries in. All of those things we have to do almost no matter what. And that's important, and lists are very important to be able to fulfill those plans. The trick is that things will change. They just will. This was the hardest lesson for me in my caregiving role, both with my sister and with my parents, especially my father. I really didn't have much control at all. I could determine when I was coming, maybe, but I might get a phone call, and that meant that I had to go right away. I could have some plans for what we might do with my father. Maybe I would go to the grocery store for him, but I might turn up and he'd be in a really terrible mood, or he'd want to do something else and he'd have tasks for me. And I had to let go of my plans. Most of the time, it was okay. I didn't mind. I was happy if we had stuff we were doing. But it was a challenge for me as a planner girl and as someone who likes to know what's coming next. I'm sure you've already discovered this in your own caregiving life, the unpredictability of life. And often you feel like you have no control whatsoever. Now, that's not entirely true. We also know that, as I said, we can plan for groceries and what we're going to cook for dinner. But life will change. It will throw you curveballs all the time. At one point with my father, who was effectively dying for 2 years, I would I would be trying to plan whether I should take some time off work because maybe he was going to die soon and I would want to be there with him, maybe even most of the time. So I would try to do that, and sometimes I even did take time off work in anticipation of that. But then things would change. Maybe he would improve, like when he started having blood transfusions. And then I'd be like, oh, why did I take that time now when I might need it later? So we get thrown these curveballs. I can remember that I started saying things like, I wish I knew how this book ended. And what I really meant was, how's it going to unfold? What's the plot line here? How will it unfold? And then I can plan. But the fact was, I would say that, and I said it a number of times, including to people at work. And then I would say, well, the problem is, I know how it ends. He's going to die. And I really don't want to rush to that. He was still of sound mind, and most of the time he was a lovely man. So I actually got to enjoy time with him. But still, I had that desire to know where things were going to go. And I would sometimes, as most people do who are caregivers, ask the doctors, when do you think this will happen? How do you think it's going to unfold? What can I expect? What can I plan for? And the fact of the matter is, we have to do both. We have to plan and we have to let go. We have to be able to be in this very moment with the person that we're caring for, right here and right now, and roll with what comes so that we can be resilient, so that we can be of most help, and so that we can take care of ourselves. It's hard. It's very hard to strike that balance. And the reason why I've focused as I have in the meditations that I've provided you with, I've focused on letting go, on being aware of the fact that everything changes, and really that we don't have a whole lot of control over that. The meditations help you to accept that. And I guess what I'm trying to get at here is acceptance as well, that we need to accept what is happening. It's very, very hard. And I found myself kicking and screaming at times, not literally, but in my mind. I was like, no. And I think you probably do too. It's difficult. And I think that the things that I've talked about in these videos, taking time for yourself, taking care of yourself, making some plans, finding some joy, and meditating if possible, even for 5-minute increments meditating, that these things will help you both in the short term, in the here and now, and in the long term, when your caregiving is over and you're trying to rebuild your life. That's a hard time. Like I said, I didn't want the book to end, but I wanted to know how it was going to go. And I bet you have days where you feel like that too. And the best we can do is get all the advice, all the information that we can acquire, and plan as we want, as we need to, and then be right here and right now. It's not easy, but caregiving is not easy. So In the meantime, I hope that the things that I've talked about today are helpful to you in your journey, and I appreciate having the time to spend with you. Thank you very much.